What if the single most overlooked shield against Alzheimer's isn't some cutting-edge billion-dollar biologic, but a mineral you can spell with just 7 letters? Lithium.
It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? The same element we associate with phone batteries and that powerful mood stabilizer for bipolar disorder is actually already floating in your brain right now. And here's the kicker. Brand new data are strongly suggesting that this tiny, natural trace element might just decide whether those insidious amyloid plaques take over your neurons or get quietly swept away long before they cause real damage. Today, we're going to dive deep into the fascinating science behind this revelation. We'll unpack the precise mechanisms, explore the surprisingly low doses that are showing promise, discuss the real risks involved, and share compelling real-world stories that are rapidly turning this old, familiar compound into tomorrow's anti-Alzheimer's workhorse. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll not only know exactly what researchers are discovering, but also what they might not be shouting from the rooftops just yet. And perhaps most importantly, what you might want to ask your doctor long before you experience another memory slip. Why Alzheimer's still wins. Let's be brutally honest for a moment. Alzheimer's is a relentless adversary. It's the only top 10 cause of death in the U.S., with no prevention plan, no survivor ribbon to wear with pride, and absolutely no plateau in sight. The statistics are chilling. Every 65 seconds, another American, sadly, joins the roster of those diagnosed with this devastating disease. And if current trends continue, by 2050, that clock will tick every 33 seconds. Think about that. It's a silent epidemic, creeping into families, stealing memories, personalities, and futures. We've seen drugs grab headlines, haven't we? Lecanemab, donanemab. These names have offered a glimmer of hope. But let's look at the reality. They can slow cognitive decline about 4 months over an 18-month period. That's something, sure, but it's a modest gain. And the cost? We're talking 20+ grand a year, requiring regular IV clinic visits and carrying the risk of potentially serious side effects like brain swelling. Meanwhile, those relentless plaques and tangles keep marching, chewing through precious memories, eroding financial stability, and heartbreakingly tearing at the fabric of families. This grim, often frustrating backdrop is precisely why a cheap, orally administered, decades-old pill is suddenly becoming the hottest, most talked-about topic in neurology meetings worldwide. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the most profound breakthroughs come from the most unexpected places. Meet the underdog, the lithium. So what exactly is this underdog, this quiet hero? Lithium isn't some exotic lab-synthesized compound conjured up in a pharmaceutical pipeline. No, it's a naturally occurring salt, an alkali metal, that literally seeps into our environment, into broccoli, into mushrooms, and even into the tap water we drink in microgram levels. Our bodies, and particularly our brains, have evolved to use it. Your brain, for instance, naturally employs lithium to help stabilize mood, stimulate the growth of new neurons, and crucially, to put the brakes on a rogue enzyme called GSK3B. Now, why is GSK3B so important? Because it's a major culprit, a turbocharger for both the dreaded tau tangles and the insidious amyloid plaques that define Alzheimer's pathology. By inhibiting this enzyme, lithium acts as a crucial brake, potentially slowing the very processes that drive the disease. But here's where it gets really interesting and a bit sneaky. When lithium binds to those amyloid plaques, it gets trapped. This means that in the brains of people with Alzheimer's, tissue levels of lithium can actually drop significantly, even while blood levels appear perfectly normal. This hidden deficit This biochemical vanishing act was one of the first major clues researchers had been measuring the wrong pool for years, overlooking a critical piece of the puzzle right under their noses. It was like looking for a lost key in your house, only to realize it was stuck in the lock all along. The evidence when you start digging is compelling. Take our furry friends, for example. When scientists feed lithium to Alzheimer's modeled mice, the results are nothing short of astonishing. These little guys previously struggling suddenly shred mazes like healthy youngsters. Their amyloid load drops dramatically, tau phosphorylation calms down, and new neurons literally pop up in their hippocampus, the brain's memory center. It's like a complete cognitive rejuvenation.
Now, translating those dramatic animal victories to humans is always a more nuanced dance, and the signal is certainly softer, but still strikingly positive. A comprehensive 2022 meta-analysis, which pooled data from 5 smaller human trials, found that lithium consistently slowed cognitive decline on the ADAS-Cog scale, a standard measure for Alzheimer's, by roughly 3 points over 1 year. To put that in perspective, that's about the same benefit seen with those expensive new antibody drugs we just talked about, but at potentially 1/100th of the cost. So what's the catch? Well, these trials averaged only about 42 patients each. Nobody has yet run the massive 1,000-person multi-year study that regulators typically demand before giving a drug the green light. It's a classic chicken and egg scenario. Promising data, but not yet enough big data to satisfy the gatekeepers. Microdose versus megadose. One of the biggest hurdles and perhaps misconceptions about lithium has always been its reputation for toxicity. Traditional bipolar therapy, for instance, requires blood levels to float between 0.6 and 1.0 millimole. A powerful dose, no doubt, but one that demands careful monitoring due to potential strain on the kidneys and thyroid. This is the megadose lithium most people think of. However, the Alzheimer's trials that have shown benefit, they've used microdoses, typically ranging from 0.15 millimole to 0.4 millimole. To give you a sense of scale, that's roughly the amount you'd naturally sip from mineral-rich tap water in parts of Texas or Austria. And here's the crucial part. In these microdose bands, side effect rates barely budged above placebo. This suggests that the sweet spot for neuroprotection, the therapeutic window for Alzheimer's, looks to be significantly lower than what psychiatry ever dared to explore. This insight fundamentally flips the risk-benefit equation, especially for seniors who are already juggling 5 other medications and are understandably wary of adding another with a heavy side effect profile. It's a game changer for accessibility and long-term adherence. Not just plaques, the anti-inflammatory bonus. But wait, there's more to lithium's magic than just tackling plaques and tangles. It turns out this little mineral is a multitasker, addressing several other critical pathways in Alzheimer's. For starters, lithium actively nudges down inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. These aren't just fancy scientific terms. They're the inflammatory molecules that essentially cook our neurons, causing damage and dysfunction long before any visible plaques even appear. Imagine a smoldering fire in your brain. Lithium helps put it out. Beyond calming inflammation, lithium also uncorks the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as high-quality fertilizer for your brain's synapses, promoting their growth, strength, and overall health. It's essential for learning and memory. And if that wasn't enough, imaging studies have shown that people on chronic low-dose lithium actually exhibit larger hippocampal volumes after 2 years. This is the exact opposite trajectory of the brain atrophy we typically see in Alzheimer's disease. This dual action, calming destructive inflammation while simultaneously regrowing and strengthening neural wiring, may be precisely why this unassuming mineral appears to outperform drugs that single-mindedly target only amyloid. It's not just cleaning up the mess, it's also rebuilding the house. Real-world snapshots. Sometimes the most compelling evidence comes not just from clinical trials, but from individual stories and broader population trends. Take Maria, for instance. She's 74, and in 2019 she was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. Rather than accept the prognosis, she enrolled in a Brazilian open-label study, taking a microdose of 0.25 millimole of lithium nightly. After 18 months, her MoCA score, a common cognitive assessment, remained perfectly flat at 24. Meanwhile, her peers in the placebo group sadly slid down to an average of 20. It's one person, yes, but it's a powerful snapshot. Or consider the fascinating data from a Texas county comparison. Communities where tap water naturally contains lithium levels above 40 micrograms per liter show age-adjusted Alzheimer's mortality rates roughly 20% lower than neighboring counties with under 10 micrograms. Coincidence? Perhaps. Anecdotes? Sure, you could call them that. But when you start seeing strings of anecdotes and observational data, all pointing in the same remarkable direction, they begin to look a lot less like random chance and a lot more like a significant emerging pattern. These aren't definitive proofs, but they're certainly potent clues, whispering a compelling story about lithium's silent protective role. The safety checklist. Now let's be absolutely clear, while microdosing changes the game, safety remains paramount. Lithium is a powerful substance, and even at low doses it requires responsible use and medical supervision. One key consideration is kidney function, which naturally declines with age. Since lithium is primarily cleared by the kidneys, your creatinine levels need to be monitored every 3 months to ensure everything is running smoothly. Another important check is your thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH. This should be checked at baseline before starting lithium, and again at 6 months, because lithium can sometimes unmask a silent, underlying hypothyroidism. And here's a critical piece of advice. Don't even think about starting lithium if your sodium intake is erratic. Low sodium levels combined with lithium can lead to higher blood levels of the mineral and an increased risk of tremor. The golden rule here is simple. Microdose, yes, but monitor diligently. And please, for the love of your health, never self-prescribe off the internet's health store capsules that list micrograms but skip any semblance of quality control. This is a medical intervention, not a dietary supplement. Remember those anti-amyloid antibody drugs like lecanemab we talked about? Imagine this, pairing them with microdose lithium. You might need fewer, expensive, inconvenient infusions for the same cognitive lift because lithium is there, quietly mopping up the secondary tau pathology and calming the inflammatory hits that these antibody drugs don't directly address. It's a synergistic approach, hitting the disease from multiple angles. The same logic applies to other exciting developments. Recently, FDA-approved cancer drugs like letrozole and irinotecan were found to shrink tau clumps in preclinical mouse models. Now, imagine adding lithium to that mix. Suddenly, you're tackling 3 major pathways of Alzheimer's: amyloid, tau, and neuroinflammation, without necessarily tripling the side effects. The future of Alzheimer's therapy is increasingly looking like a polypill strategy, a sophisticated cocktail of interventions. And in that cocktail, lithium, with its broad neuroprotective effects and incredibly low cost, is positioned to be the affordable backbone, the essential ingredient every combination can afford to include. It's about smart, comprehensive, and accessible treatment. What to ask your doctor? So you've absorbed all this information, and perhaps you're feeling a flicker of hope and curiosity. What's your next step? Don't just sit there. Take action. Print out that 2023 Brazilian microdose study. It's readily available online. Highlight the safety table and go armed with information. Ask your doctor directly, given my kidney numbers and overall health, is a 3-month trial of 0.3 millimole of lithium worth considering for me? If the answer is a flat no, without a thorough explanation, consider seeking a second opinion, ideally from a neurologist or a physician who is comfortable with off-label prevention strategies and open to exploring emerging research. And remember, this isn't a magic bullet that lets you neglect other crucial aspects of brain health. If you do start, track your cognition with a yearly MoCA test, keep a detailed symptom diary, and always couple the pill with foundational habits. Prioritize quality sleep, engage in regular exercise, and stick to a brain-healthy Mediterranean diet.
Lithium amplifies good habits. It doesn't replace them. It's a powerful ally, not a solo savior. If this surprising spin on an old, familiar friend has piqued your interest, if it's given you a glimmer of hope you didn't expect, then please hit that subscribe button. I break down complex neurology papers every single week so you don't have to mine PubMed at 2 a.m. Drop your questions on low-dose lithium below in the comments. I answer as many as my kids let me.
And most importantly, share this information with someone who still thinks Alzheimer's is an absolutely hopeless diagnosis. Because the data, the emerging science, is unequivocally saying that the door is finally cracked open. Let's keep pushing it open together. Alzheimer's has terrorized families for well over a century, leaving a trail of heartbreak and despair. But today, the script is undeniably shifting. A simple mineral that we already drink, already regulate, and already mass-produce is quietly yet powerfully showing that it can slow and perhaps one day even stall the relentless march of this disease, all for pennies a day. We absolutely need bigger, more robust trials. We need smarter, more synergistic combination therapies, and we need to keep asking louder, more insistent questions until microdose lithium, or its shinier, more refined cousins, becomes standard care, readily available to those who need it most. Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical enough to ask the right questions, and above all, stay hopeful, because science has just handed us a key, and it's small enough to swallow.
Did you enjoy the video? Subscribe to our channel, Health and Wellness for All, for more tips and information. See you soon.